all I ever wanted to do was fly aeroplanes. My mother said the first word I said was aeroplane. She said Kingsford Smith was flying over at the time. I don't know how true that is, but that's how it was with me. I just wanted to fly. I was building model aeroplanes, and I initially joined and was told that because I didn't have the education qualification, that if I studied hard and got my equivalent of the certificate, then I'd be able to get into aircraft. The only one who believed that was me, which is exactly what I did. I went to night school and stuff while I was an engine fitter, which I enjoyed. I liked working on the engines. And eventually the Korean War came along and they were needing pilots, so I got a Guernsey. And that's it. 3 years in ground crew, and then the rest of the time as a GD pilot, which is my life's ambition.
Actually, I was living in Victoria at the time, and jobs were a bit hard to get, and I decided I was going to join the services. And that at that stage, you could get into the army. It was only 2 years if you sign up for career. So I went down to Melbourne to the recruiting office to join the army, and I met a mate outside the recruiting office, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I told him I was going to join the army, and he said, I'm down here to join the Air Force. I said, "Oh, bugger it, I'll join the Air Force." So instead of joining the army for 2 years, I joined the Air Force for 6. Right? That's as simple as that. And then it was just training courses after that. I trained to be a fitter, so we did a 3-month course at Rathmines in New South Wales, near Newcastle. And depending on your grades in that, depending on what your further training was, and if you were very high up, you went for electricians, instrument mechanics and all that type of thing. I was in the lower grades, and you had the choice of either an engine or an airframe fitter, and so I became an airframe fitter at that stage. It was simple as that.
Well, we were on what was called interdiction, interdicting the enemy supply lines and depots and things like that north of the border to stop the ammunition really getting to the front line and shooting at our troops. So that was our contribution, was to try and stop the supply to the front line troops, the enemy's front line troops. We were lucky that the Sabres had established air superiority, so we didn't see much of the MiGs. You'd see contrails occasionally, but then the Americans would go up and, with their Sabres and take them on. So we were free to do our ground attack, which was bad enough. There was plenty of flak around. That one day I got 3 hits in the starboard engine and wing. After I recovered and got my breath back, I was tail in Charlie, so the boys front had already gone through and they were specks disappearing in the distance, and here's me struggling along at about 100 feet. So I called them up and told them calmly that I was in trouble, like screaming my head off. And the leader came back and inspected me and said, "Well, you're not too damaged underneath. We think your wheels will come down if you can get where you can land." Couldn't get back to base in that condition, so I headed for the coast. Found Pyongyang, which had a nice, reasonably long beach, and landed on the beach. Got out very relieved. The island was held by the United States Marines and a company of British Navy, and they looked after me till the Dakota came the next day with the ground crew and a new engine. I went back with the Dakota to Ilkuni, to Kimpo, and then went and saw the CO that night and said, because I thought they'd surely send a more experienced pilot to pick it up, and I begged with him to let me go and get the aeroplane and finish the mission, which he did, and so I went back, picked the aeroplane up and brought it home. And as I said earlier, the aeroplane was completely overhauled and then put back on operations. An English pilot called Coleman was flying it the very next mission and got shot down again. So the engineer officer never forgave me because he wasted a new engine, a lot of man hours fixing it up the first time. He said, "You should have jumped out the first time." I said, "No thanks."